Hello, Sunday Drury Clubbers. It's Jo. I promised I would put together a video with some of the things that Claire taught us last week, so flowers and bees, and then I made up a fluffy duck that everybody liked, so I thought I'd put this in the video as well for anybody who didn't make it. I'm drawing with a camera over my shoulder, so I'm going to do my best not to get in the way of it so you can see what I'm doing. So I've essentially got some watercolour paper, I've got a couple of sizes of brushes, some clean water, kitchen roll for blotting. I'm just going to use some cheap pad watercolours, but some of you do have some tube ones from Claire, and those are very good to use too. So let us start with ducks. So the trick with the ducks, and I'll do a couple, is just to get a pale yellow. So I'm basically putting some water on the pad to wet it, get plenty on the brush, but then I'm dipping it back in the water to make it thin. And I'm going to do a very loose head, which is a yellow circle. And then kind of off the back of it here, a bit of an oval, and just fill it in. If you've run out of paint, just put a bit of water on your brush, you'll have plenty of actual paint on your brush. And what you actually want here is to get quite a bit of water on your paper. This paper I'm using is really good, but it soaks in the water quite fast, so I always do like to put quite a little bit on. Then I'm going to take a dark brown, and fluffy ducklings come in lots of different colours, so feel free to use black if you don't want to use brown. So essentially what I'm going to do now is just get some brown on in the places that I fancy. You'll see the paint is naturally bleeding, and if you want it to bleed out, you can just tap. If you think it's too dark, you just add a drop of water and you'll see the paint will just bloom. And you're literally just adding some brown where you think the duck may need it. And with little fluffy ducks, essentially, you know, they're fuzzy and they don't have a proper pattern, so the colours can just blend into each other. I'm now taking a much thinner brush, a bit of water on, I'm just blot off on the side, and I'm going to go around and just do tiny little fluffiness so you don't have that harsh shape around the edge. So this is what makes your fluffy duck fluffy. I'm pretty sure you can all hear the wah 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 from upstairs because my son Jake is having a guitar lesson, but this was a perfect time for me to sit and record. And if you don't like the colours mixing, just rinse your brush off every so often. You know, the whole point is that the colours of the leaves, the feathers even, do just mix together. So all you're trying to do here is just get rid of the harsh lines. So this gives you your basics of your duck. And now it just goes to just trying to adjust it. So I quite like what's happening at the top, but I'd like this darkness to kind of come out into the leaves. So again, with my thinner brush, I'm just dotting. I think this one's quite dark, so I'm just going to encourage that to move around a bit. And again, I don't think this is dark enough at the bottom, so a few dark blobs, a bit more water, encourage that to move out. His face I'd like a little bit darker. If you see my hand moving in weird directions, there's an empty coffee cup on the dining room table, and I keep trying to put my brush in it, and then I realise it's got no water in it, and I've got to actually go in the right mug with the water in. So I feel that's quite a good colour. I'm thinking I might like a little bit more yellow, so I'm going to pick up some of that yellow again and just blob some yellow up in this brown here, just to give the idea of some of those feathers coming through in the brown. So that is essentially our fluffy duck. You literally now just play until you're happy, and it is a matter of what I call titivating till you're happy. So once you've got that basic shape, you want to give him a beak, and we're going to come back to that because his beak's going to come out here. This is a duck leaning forwards. What I've got here on the other side of my example is a duck who's more looking up in the air, and all we've done there is just change the position of the oval to the circle. So you can just make your duck look in different directions. We're going to paint one of these ducks looking down or crossways, depending how he comes out. So while he's drying, and we'll come back and add his eye and his beak, we'll do a few flowers, and we'll do these down in the bottom corner. So your flowers can be in any colour you fancy. The best plan for your flowers, again, like we started with the duck, is to have just a really pale colour. So wet your pad, get a little bit of paint on it, dab it in some water, just to thin your paint off. I've just dropped a bit of water onto the paper towel just to dry my brush off slightly. And we're looking to create 3 kind of triangle or leaf shapes. In fact, these have come out quite brush size, so I might even make 4. And you'll see I've got quite a lot of water on, and I'm running out now around the other side. So I'm just using my brush. Oh, try and not take this off the page, off the camera. I'm going to make one with 4 petals just because these are quite narrow, and literally you're just moving your water about to get the shape that you want, like that. I'm going to do another one, just try and make it a little bit less watery. Let's see what we can do. Water is not a problem because actually it's quite nice to bleed colours. If we can make triangles, then we can do these as a 3. You get a bit of a biohazard symbol out of this one, but it makes a nice flower. So you can play about with whatever kind of leaf styles that you want. Maybe you like heart shapes, so you could make you could do 3 heart shapes. I'm just going to take a bit of water off that one to fill in this one, and you'll see, I'm using, again, a bit less paint on this one, so it's a bit more faded, but that really doesn't matter. And that's my 3 heart shapes there. So that gives us the base of 3 flowers, and actually they're all different darknesses. I'm going to make that one just a bit lighter by putting a clean brush on it and soaking up some of that water. Just because what we'll do next will come out better. So I'm going to dry my brush, get some of the pink again, so it's darker, and I'm literally going to dot some of this at the bottom of each petal towards the centre. And you shall see why in a minute. It's not doing very much right now, but it will. And here on each of the 4 petals. And you'll see it is working more on the later ones. If you drop a spot of water in the middle, what you're looking for is the blooming of that deeper colour up the leaf. And the nearer the edge that you touch some water on, the more it will blend and bleed into the other colour up your leaf. And if it doesn't, you can just encourage it by tapping on the side. And then you'll see each one is slightly different. So we've got a couple of options now on how to make these flowers interesting. With this one here, I'm going to just leave it to dry. And these 2, I'm going to show you a couple of different options with different colours. So I'm going to take some nice blue teal. If I bring this down a bit, you might be able to see I've got a teal colour. And on this one with 4 leaves, I'm just going to drop the teal at the top. I've got quite a lot in there. And what that will do is, again, blend in with the pink. And if you think you've got too much on, you can wet your brush, clean it, dry it, and just lay your brush on the top, and you'll soak some of that away. And that should leave us with a bit of a purpley colour. With this one here, I'm going to do the same, but in a yellowy colour. I'm going to just try and use slightly less water. Put some dots at the top, and the drier it is, the less it will bleed, but that's okay, because you can put some yellow at the top like so. And then when you're happy, add your water, just a couple of dots, and this will bleed the 2 colours together, and you'll end up with a kind of orangey tip on your flower. So it just gives you a couple of options of what to do. And we'll come back to the 3rd flower when that's dry. Now, looking at the duck looks almost dry. So we're going to go back with our fine brush, take some brown, and we're going to draw his beak. So as I said, this little duck's going to kind of look forwards. So you're going to draw a little beak shape like so, however you want his little beak to look. And then we're going to colour his beak in. I'm washing all the paint off my brush, and I'm just going to use plain water to bleed the brown in from the edge. So what that will do is make the brown outline of his beak less harsh, and it'll give you a little bit of texture on his finished beak. And you can add some shadow in there if you want, or look at the light bouncing off it, and then you can just blend that beak into the furriness. You also have the option of going back to the yellow and just putting a little bit of yellow on the top here, so that beak looks totally seamless when it comes to the duck. And then finally, over here, I have my black. I'm just going to get some black and put a dot in here for his eye. A little bit darker. I'm just going to get a bit more on there. You just want to make sure your brush is quite dry so that your eye doesn't bleed too much. Obviously, I've put this bit of yellow here, so I'm just conscious I don't want it to bleed into the yellow, but give him quite a good dark eye like that. So there's our little duck. If you wanted to just finish that off as a bit of a scene, you can take your thicker brush again, pick a nice blue. I've dropped that back in the water again to thin it, and then you just get some blue and gently spread that around the outside. If your duck isn't quite dry, he might just bleed into the water, so you might want to wait until he's very dry. I can just see the edges of the yellow bleeding. I'm not too worried about that, because actually it would be like a bit of a reflection coming back into the water, and then you just decide how far you want to paint the water around him, get as close in as you can. So that's kind of what your little fluffy duck would look like. We'll give him a bit of water around the top, and then he's done. And if you're worried about getting right in up close to him with the water, then you can always just swap brushes, put a little bit of water on your thinner brush and tease that colour in towards him. And you'll see there I've just got a little bit of colour coming down into that water, but as I say, that makes for quite a nice reflection, and you can just tease that out like so if you want to. So that gives you your fluffy duck. Looking at this flower at the bottom, this is pretty dry. So what you would do here is, I'm going to apologise for my cat scratching the carpet behind me, which I'm sure you can also hear. Having fun of it today. So I'm taking the same pink. You could take something contrasting like a purple or a blue. And I'm just going to put some little fine lines up the leaf. I've not got much water on my brush, so you can see it's actually having, I've not actually picked up much colour, so I'm going to just put some water onto the pad, pick up more colour, and once I've got colour in the brush, dry off the water on the paper towel, which now means that I can paint up this leaf a bit more accurately. And again, just trying to get some little veins up the leaf. Using the same colour, you can see the contrast isn't as good. So I'm going to just show you on the third one. I'm going to put a purple on there just to give you an idea of what a contrasting colour would look like. And just, you'll see there, just gives slightly different effect, and you can see how we've got an orange bloom here, a purple bloom here, just by blending the colours together. Right, so I will do one quick bee while we're still here, and then you've seen everything. So I'm going to start with a kind of orange yellow, because a bee is not really a bright yellow. And it's going to be the same principle as the duck, but just with some different shapes. So we're going to start by thinking about our bees. The top of our bee, which is going to be kind of a squarish shape at the top. Then we're going to bring our bee round in a curve, so a bigger square underneath, and then this yellow tail is a bit more triangle-y. I've put the paint on quite thick for now, but you'll see we're going to blend those together in a minute. I'm going to wash out and get black, so quite dark black, and we're going to have a head here, so a triangle. I'm going to get a bit more black on my brush. So our bee's going to be made up of a nice triangle like so. Then we're going to have a triangle in the middle. Doesn't matter if they touch because we're going to blend them together shortly. And then another triangle like so here. And actually he's quite a skinny bee. So I'm just going to make his yellow bits a bit fatter, give him a bit more substance. I'm just going to bring those out a bit wider. And we'll do the same with the black shortly, like so. Again, this is just about having a look at it, seeing what you think. Now that we've got most of the colour on, I'm just going to add some water as I extend the black and start bleeding the black and the yellow together. So I've got quite a bit of water here to allow those to bleed together. And it's this bleeding and blending that helps with making your duck fluffy. You see I've got quite a big bee there. I want to make him fluffy around the outside like the duck. So I'm going to start with my little brush, making those little furry bits. If you don't want the black to bleed into the yellow too much at this stage, you can wet your brush. I wouldn't really bother too much when you get to your head, but really what you're doing is just trying to smooth out those harsh lines at the edge of your bee. So we'll keep blending and smudging. Here I'm not bothered, so I'm just going to keep going. I want his tail to be quite yellow, so I am going to wash out his tail a little bit and just make sure he's fluffy all the way around. And now you've got the basic shape of your bee, you can then just start accentuating the bits that you're interested in. So I do want him to be quite black. in the middle. So I'm going to just add some more darkness. And I'm going to drop this into the fluffy areas as well, so that the dark goes right to the edges, especially in these segments. And the other thing to be really aware of is that as you move your paint will move to where your brush last touches the paper. So you can see with me pushing outwards, I'm not getting much paint left in the middle. So actually I need to dab in the middle as well if I want the paint to stay in the middle of my bee. I'm just gonna, and again, keep adding water at these junctions so that they bleed and you don't get harsh lines. And if you want to darken any of the edges, you can, or adding a bit more yellow to brighten up the middle. And again, a bit of water. Then gets all the colours flowing together. You'll see here, I feel this is just a little bit dark, so I'm putting a clean brush on and just mopping up with the clean brush some of this water. And then letting it bleed out again. Once you've got your basic shape, you are essentially just finessing your picture. I want this black off here, so again, I'm just going to soak some of that up off the paper. And I think it's good to kind of show you where things don't go quite as you might like, and how you might fix it. So you see here, I've got a little, somehow got a little bit of green on my brush. I don't know where the green's come from. Strangely green bee now. Not to worry. And again, just making sure that the colours end up how you would like them. And I'm quite happy with that as my fluffy bee. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to add on some of the details. So we're going to give him some antennae, like so. Like a few little spits and spots near him. That gives him a bit of kind of movement, which I quite like. And then I am going to add some legs. He's coming in to land near my flowers, which is quite sweet. And then a couple of legs down here. And then up here, kind of bees kind of have a few little things coming off the bottom of the head, which is quite nice to add in there. So essentially, you know, at this stage, you're faffing about till it looks like a bee kind of shape that you would like. So onto the wings. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do wings. I'm going to take this very pale kind of sandy colour first, and I'm just going to paint on a couple of wings, like so. And just a couple of wing shapes that come together and out. I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to edge it. So that will leave us another minute while that dries. Maybe while that dries, I'm going to go back to my little fluffy duck and maybe just, you know, if you want to add some little bit more detail with your fine brush, you can get a few more little feathery shapes in there. This bit at the top, I think I've done kind of a little bit heavily. So if I just add water again, it will just blend in and give him a darker look rather than particular brush strokes. So it's just about playing about till you get an effect that you're happy with. Depends how good your brush skills are and how thick your brushes are. I haven't gone for, I've got some thinner brushes, but I haven't gone for those because I know not everybody's got them. So I tried to go with something that was fairly standard. Right, our bees' wings look ready to go. So I'm just going to get a little bit of brown, make sure I've not got too much in terms of water on it. And I'm coming up and I'm edging the wings. And I want to make sure I'm just drawing wing shapes that I quite like. And maybe we think the wings are maybe in a couple of segments. Now, what bees quite have is a translucent pattern. So like we did with the duck, on the beak, we're going to start using a bit of water to bring this brown in and generate a pattern across the wings. So I'm going to paint over the top first to release that colour a little bit more because it's not releasing very well. And just the same underneath. If you paint over the wing first, with just a little bit of water, you can then drag that colour back out to your wing. And the same on this side. I'm going to paint over that wing shape just to loosen it. And then drag that colour in to create a pattern that might give some kind of a lattice shape across the bee's wing. And then if we think about how the light might hit the bee, say the light was coming from this way, this then is a little bit dark for light hitting it, but actually this wing here might want to be a bit darker, as might this. So again, we can just add a little bit more paint. It might be, mine's a little bit wet. You just have to be a bit careful that you don't want it to bleed in. I guess we wouldn't have any dark bits, any gaps there where his wings join. I don't want them to look disjointed. So again, I'm just blending that colour in and trying to give a bit of a shadow on the bottom of the wings. If you still feel that the top is maybe not bright enough, you could go over with some of that sandy colour, like so, which would just give it a little bit of a highlight, or even a brighter yellow might work. You're just trying to tone in and use the water to spread the colours around. So I think that's a pretty good bee and a pretty good duck and a couple of pretty flowers. So do enjoy and hope you have fun experimenting and drawing yourself. See you all on Sunday.